Hi, everyone. I am Jamie Lieberman. I'm the owner and founder of #Legal, a law firm that specializes in working with online business owners, entrepreneurs, and creators. I've created this video series talking to industry leaders about what they wish they knew before the pandemic in their businesses. They're providing us some incredible business information and wisdom that you just can't find. So I am thrilled to be able to bring that to you. Please stay tuned and you'll be able to hear our next interview.
I am very excited. I am here today with my very good friend and client, Monica Froese. Thank you for being with us today.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
So, this is our next interview in our series where you're talking to industry leaders all about how their businesses have been impacted, what they've seen in their industries, and the things that they would do differently or to change or what they've learned. So, Monica, can you please tell everyone who you are and what you do?
Yeah, so my name's Monica Froese, and my everything right now is under the brand Redefining Mom, which started as a working mom blog, but is not really a working mom blog. It's really morphed into helping women who primarily came from corporate backgrounds take their skills into online business. That's like one side of it. So, and we have a lot of practical tools on that side for helping moms. And then on the other side, I have a booming course business, which is really to help. It's right now focused very much around Pinterest, but I actually have a lot of different resources, and it's like digital marketing education pretty much for online business.
Yeah, you are the pro. I'm very lucky as working with Monica. I get to see all the stuff that she works on and these downloads and worksheets, and your methodologies are amazing. Like they blow me away. They're a different
Thank you.
language to me. They're
They're kind
so
of intense.
smart. They're amazing. No, but they're so good. It is literally a step by step. I feel like if anybody were to just follow this methodology, this incredible methodology you created, they will have success. It's incredible. So I am always so impressed every time I see your content. I'm like,
Thank
she's
you.
rocking it. So I want to talk about the course world, the online business world. You're in both. You're so integrated in so many of these communities. What has been one unexpected side effect of the pandemic on both your business and the businesses of the people that you work with and see, your students and in your community?
Well, I think that the most interesting thing that's happened for the online course world and really like I would say the online course world and the blogging world is I felt in the last I'll say 18 months there was really starting to be a shift towards in-person connection.
Mm.
So courses blew up and everyone was creating a course, not necessarily well put together courses, but courses. And there was this whole lack of connection going on. And so a lot more events popped up, a lot more mastermind groups and just networking opportunities. And they all got shut down. So many people that I know, this was their year that they were starting to do a mastermind. They were putting together an
Oh,
event. I can't even tell you how many. And it's funny because that was on my husband has told me forever that I needed to have an event here in Buffalo, but it only can be in the summer because it's Buffalo. No one's going to come. I have Niagara Falls in my backyard, but it has to be warm enough. So he has been telling me because I came from an event planning background in corporate that I could, and I have such a big community. He's like, you could put together such a great event. And I put him off and put him off and put him off. And I was just getting ready to entertain the idea. And now there's just none of that. And I really feel for my friends that it kind of gives me anxiety thinking about the contracts they signed and how they're locked into venues. And there's it's so much uncertainty and they put so much of their business on the line to host these events. And then directly for me though, this was the first year where I was bringing together team members to be able to meet in person. And I do feel like that's very important for growing a team. I mean, Zoom is one thing, but meeting people in real life, especially when you are working with them every day, is super important. And we had to cancel our first big team retreat. And I am pretty bummed about that.
So interesting. You're the first person who's responded that way. And I think it's because the other people I've spoken to, their businesses are in person. So they were all very used to, but because the online space, we live online and behind screens, I think you're so right. So many people now that I think about it, we're really talking about networking and like getting in
Mhm.
person and gearing up, like the jokes about the introverts that were like gearing up to have the event or go to the event. That is so, you're so right. Yeah, the event business has just been, I have many clients that run events and it's been a wild
Honestly,
time.
business is it's so funny because in corporate I would say all the time, I can't stand networking. So I always thought that was like a detriment to me getting ahead. And in reality, that's all I do is network
Yeah,
in this business. I mean,
yeah.
honestly, the best connections, the connections that have gotten me the furthest are the people that I got out from behind the screen and
Yes.
met in real life. And so I do wonder what kind of impact that's going to have in the long run, depending on how long this lasts on online business. I mean, on one hand, a lot of people are talking about how well positioned we are. And I'm not saying we're not because we are already working online. We know how to do it. But on the other hand, we're going to miss out on a lot of those connections and those meeting points where business really happens. So it's going to be interesting to see.
I totally agree with you. I'm very much an in-person person, even though many of my clients I've never met them before. We've been lucky that we've
Yes,
met,
we have.
which I'm very happy about. But many of my clients I've never met. And so when I meet them, though, that connection is so much stronger. And I love to meet people. I mean, I talk to anybody all day. And so that I am very much missing that. And I am very sad about all the events I'm not going to for sure.
Yeah,
What's
me too.
what's one lesson that you wish you knew before this all happened?
Well, it's become a little bit clear that an emergency plan is pretty necessary. So,
Yeah.
I've found in talking to people that people see an emergency plan very differently. I think we've in the business particularly been talking about a recession happening for a while because my background's in business. And so economics tells us that we were going to hit some sort of recession sooner than later. It's
Yeah.
really an every decade thing, give or take a few years. Plus, we were going into an election year. So we actually been talking for like the last 8 months about what was our contingency plan in a recession, not a pandemic, not
Right.
the market stop overnight type thing, well, more of a gradual recession we were planning for. And so we had that already on our minds. But I was thinking of things like, what happens if I go into the hospital? Who can even
Right.
access my stuff? Like, my husband could probably figure out a decent amount of how to get into stuff, but it'd be it'd be difficult. There's nothing really like documented in what if I become incapacitated? And that is like a real
Oh,
concern now that people should be thinking about, especially
so
when your
smart.
business feeds and funds your family. Like that is
Right.
actually scary to think about. So that's been on my mind since all of this happened.
I think that's such a good point. And we spoke with in one of our other interviews, Allie Craig. She's a brander, marketer, and she actually deals in crisis management a lot. And she said every time she works with a client one on one, they always knock out the crisis management plan. Always. It's always the disposable thing. And we're laughing about it now, but I think that your point is so true. You have to, and we spoke with Luann Nigera also, who's been in business for 40 years. She's owned like a brick and mortar on top of what she does. She's been through 3 recessions. I've been through two, 2001 and 2008.
2008.
Yeah. And so we've lived it a little bit, but people who've never lived a recession,
So,
it's
the fun, I forgot who I was telling someone this recently. So, when the 2008 recession happened, I was 23 years old. I was getting my MBA, working full time, no kids. I actually still lived at home when that happened because I was like milking the
oh,
free rent thing through college. Like I
love
was a
it.
dummy. And I remember because I worked in a really big Fortune 100 company, and in our office there was like 1,500 people. I remember like shortly after like the crash started happening, 400 people got laid off in one day. I was fortunate not to. In hindsight, I realized I was fortunate not to. When it was happening, I was kind of like, well, like honestly, I just didn't have that much on the line. And I just kind of figured,
Right.
well, I'll just get another job. And now
Yeah.
it's like, oh,
Wow.
that's not
Mhm.
really the way that this happens when you're an adult with kids and a house and real responsibilities. It's
Right.
it's a scary thing to go through a
Yeah.
recession.
It really is. And I also not only feel that sense of responsibility to my family, but my employees. And
Yes,
I know you feel that way too. And
very
like,
strongly.
they're just, I feel responsible for them.
Hmm.
And so, yeah, that crisis management, that contingency plan, so smart. What's been the most important resource to you during this time that you've been relying on?
Well, I wrote down 3 actually.
Ah, I love
So
it.
I
Love
wrote it
it.
down. I'm a note taker. So I wrote you, and I'll get
Oh,
it's true. Use my CPA and knowing my numbers. So I am a little shocked by the number of people who have no idea where they stand financially.
oh my gosh, me
And
too.
I don't know how you make decisions without, I mean, I can like literally quote my P&L. I can quote different like I know I'm pretty good at knowing my numbers, but I never realized how important it was. I mean, I guess I realized it, but not to this degree until this happened, because now you're dealing with, like, we have the huge stimulus packages, which is, I've talked to you about. So I was in the midst of hiring someone, and like, so now all these employment laws are changing. So I'm like tapping you, what's going on? What am I on the hook for? What am I
Yeah.
not? Like, do I do this? And it's just like this rapidly changing environment. So lawyer, CPA, and CPA numbers, I guess, kind of go hand in hand. But even independent, though, I mean, your CPA can only lead you to the water.
Yes. Right.
And it's up to you then to do the interpretation and come up with your plan
Yeah.
on what to do with what you're presented with.
I so agree with you. Knowing your metrics, knowing your P&Ls, having a P&L, having good books. Yeah, they're so critical. I mean, one thing tend to be conservative in terms of holding on to cash. So my company is almost always cash heavy until the end of the year that's when I really pay myself. And I plan it that way on purpose because I am someone who hoards cash for the rainy day. Like
Mhm.
I always have those many months that you're supposed to have because of various reasons, but having lived through 2 recessions and also I didn't grow up very much. So I have always had that experience of like when I had cash, I kept it. Like it
Yeah,
was
no,
just, and so that has made a huge difference. But knowing my numbers, knowing how long we can last, knowing like if leads are slowing, if clients are slow to pay, if changes are happening, like many of my clients have been hit hard, like how long can we make it, how long can I pay my staff, what stimulus money do I need, so you don't want to take it if you don't need it,
right.
and things like that. So I think those are great answers. And the numbers thing, I mean, I appreciate you saying me, thank you, but the numbers thing is so key. Right.
Everyone needs to know their numbers. Like, everyone who's
Yes.
listening, please
Yes,
have a basic
please.
spreadsheet. Start there.
Google Sheet, take it. Yes. So you communicate frequently with your list. I'm on your
I do.
list and I hear from you a lot. Have you changed your communication at all during this time?
So I feel a little bit in the minority with my stance on this. So I think, one, it is important to acknowledge and recognize what's going on. Like, nobody should be coming off tone deaf in this environment. Like, that would be very strange to just sort of not act like, there's a global pandemic going on and just resuming like that's not that would be weird. That would be very strange. I do think it's necessary to acknowledge, but I feel like I'm very practical, and I don't understand the panicness that some people have about it. Like, not that I don't like, I acknowledge that everyone has a different cross to bear through this. So, if you've had a family member that's been impacted by it, you're going to feel a lot different than someone who's not had that. So, but since I do have a really big audience, I don't see how I'm serving anyone to come from a place of panic and like the sky is falling, our businesses are all ending, and we should just pack up shop and go back to get a job or hit the unemployment line. Like, I don't get that. I actually would rather, and so my take on it has been, acknowledge the circumstances we're under and adjust to how you can serve and keep selling. Because that's like the biggest thing with serving women entrepreneurs that I have found, is that the selling question, which men would never ask, by the way,
Thank you.
ever. I have got to meet a man who's like, I'm totally going to stop selling stuff. I feel horrible about it. I'm just going to sell stuff in my business
So
because I feel bad.
true.
What? I know some people in my audience who have, like, their whole business was built for this, like homeschooling bloggers, and they're afraid. They're like, should I just give it away for free? No. this is your time. This is like, you have put in all of that work for people to need you. We need you now. Please tell me how to teach my kid Common Core math before I tell her to carry the one.
When I talked to Luann, so she, like I said, hers was interior designers, and she said the same thing. She's like, there are people sitting in their homes who still have disposable income.
Yeah.
Who now are in their homes 7 days a week staring at the couch that they hate. Sell. Like,
So here's the thing. I forgot where I heard this recently, but it really stuck with me, which is that money didn't actually disappear.
right.
So the money actually, people have money.
Yes.
It has shifted, and there are people that are definitely hurting, and like that shouldn't be. I feel like it's always important to acknowledge those things.
Yes.
But there are also people that have money. And in a lot of these instances with the people who feel bad selling, it's because they're actually selling to people who have the money still.
Yeah.
And somehow they feel bad taking it. And it's just no. And guys, the economy is built on buying and selling.
Buying and selling. That's why, when I have a lease, I haven't been in my office in a month. I paid my lease because I can. Could I have called my landlord and said, I'm not paying you? Sure. And would they be able to do anything?
Not
Maybe,
right now,
maybe
right?
not,
Yeah.
but I can. And so I am. And so I'm buying and I'm subscribing to things that I need now that I didn't need before because I have some saved and I'm able to do that. If you can't, you can't. And I think that communication is obviously very important, but there's nothing wrong with, in a non-tone deaf way, continuing, particularly those homeschool bloggers. Every mother in the world,
yeah, I mean,
will be buying your stuff.
One of the things that we were talking about before we were recording is one of the things I want to do is a scholarship for my course. So, taking on the vein of like being a homeschool blogger. So if you know that there are people that really could benefit from your resources and they genuinely can't afford it in this environment, do something like that for them, but still offer, because you staying in business is feeding your family, employing, even if you don't have employees, you likely have contractors. This is like one gigantic, we go around in circles. I just had this conversation about, my daughter goes to a private Catholic school, and it's very clear through the communication that they're having some hiccups with tuition payments. Now, one would assume that there's probably some people that genuinely are having issues making their tuition payments.
Sure.
I would also gather, I have gathered from communication that there are also people that just feel that they shouldn't have to pay because their kids aren't actually going into the building. And I personally find that ridiculous, because these teachers who are already underpaid now are like coming up with a plan on the fly to keep our kids educated. And they might not be doing it up to the standard that other people think they should be, but also, who saw this coming? We're all just doing the best we can. And if you can afford to keep paying it, I can't imagine not paying her tuition right now, because I know that would directly impact a teacher or impact an administrator. Like that's just not fair to do.
Yes, I think that's so true. And each person has to make that choice for themselves. But like you said, it shouldn't stop you from making the ask. The community doesn't have to take it. They don't have to say, I'll buy. They just won't buy. And that's okay. But the people out there will. Yeah. No, I think that's so, so true. So what advice would you give to a new business owner about preparing for a crisis? One who maybe this is their first one, or somebody's thinking about going into business because either they got laid off or they realized, oh my God, I hate my job and my life and I want to make something different of it. So I'm going to go into business when this is over.
Can you imagine how many introverts are now not in the office and they're like, whoa, this is amazing. I want to be home because that was me. Like, honestly, my life, I'm not even going to lie, has not changed very much because I am an introvert. I love being at home. I live for being at home. It's kind of like not that much of a burden for me to be at home. I'm going to be honest. So there's a lot of people that are probably sitting there saying, yes, this is what I want my life to be. How to make this happen. So for me, I think that it's really important to always consider, like in business. So 8 months ago, and I was already talking about the recession, when literally everything on the news was like, the stock market's the highest it's ever been, and the economy, our unemployment rates. I mean, when you listen, that's all you heard on the news. Like everything was hunky-dory and stuff. But we already had a contingency plan in place for what happens if this segment of our buyers stop buying. Then we need to, and we were actually already moving resources that way to, as my friend Lena says, hedging your bets. She
I
always
love
talks,
Lena.
yes, Lena is like, and she's a CPA, so she's all about hedging your bets and having
Yes.
multiple revenue and income streams.
Mhm.
And honestly, I have to say, in the beginning of my business, I thought, I'm only one person. I don't have the time to have multiple sustainable income streams. It's very important to have multiple sustainable income streams in your business, because if everything is on one major thing and that major thing is impacted by whatever happens, like if you were an event only business, you're pivoting very fast. And if you had no contingency plan in place, you didn't have any digital ways to bring your stuff online. That right there is a contingency plan that you could have had in your business. If
Yeah.
this event can't happen, we can turn it into a digital event, not have to give refunds, give the same content. But so many people did not have that in place,
That's exactly
which
right.
it's it's a learning. I guess sometimes you just have to go through it
Yeah.
once. And I think because I'm risk averse, that's why I was thinking about it. And my background being in business, and like my favorite subject in school, nerdingly enough, was economics. So this
I'm
just
a I majored in economics and engineering, so that's
I
why we
didn't
get
know that.
along so well.
I can see that. Yes, that was like I lived for economics
I
class.
like
I just
economics.
loved it because it's logical.
Mhm.
Honestly, economics is super logical when
Yeah,
you think about it, but I feel like the media makes it out to be like the scary thing. It's really not scary. And honestly, the more you know, the easier it is to
it's
handle
true.
it.
And you can start to, when you do have a basic understanding of economics and markets, you can start to see what you were saying, which was in the back of my head as well. I was like, we've been in growth for too long. Like, it's coming.
Oh yeah.
Clearly, none of us saw this. Not a
No.
clue. Totally blindsided. But I was definitely thinking to myself, like, the economy's been too good for too long.
Oh
And I
yeah.
thought, that's the Jew in me. I was just like, oh, I'm just worried. Everything's going to go bad.
As my mom says, everything's going to hell in a handbasket.
Exactly. I kept was like, no, you're being negative. But no, it's true. Like, you will live through recessions in any
You will.
business, and you have to make yourself, the multiple income streams is so true.
I get that a lot. Not a lot, but I have had people say, "Oh, you're being negative." And it's like I would prefer to actually say I'm being a realist.
Realist. Yes.
I used to
I
actually call
agree.
myself a pessimist, and then I was told, "Don't call yourself a pessimist, call yourself a realist." I'm like, "Oh, that actually
Yeah.
is much better because it's true. I could see where it could come off as pessimism, but it's really I'm just being realistic." And that's what I love. Lawyers, CPAs, these are the people I hang out with because you're all rooted in this realistic expectations of how
Yeah.
things happen.
Well, I think you have to always understand what your worst case scenario is. Think that it probably won't happen, but you have to know what it is so that you have something in your head to be able to deal with. Like you said, with the events, like, you have to think to yourself, like, what if I can't run this event? It's not like, oh, I could never run it. It's like, what if the event's not going to go forward? What do I do? You have to always be thinking that way. Yeah, for
Yeah,
sure. I
you really
agree.
do. And this, at least, I basically like this is the defining moment of our adulthood. Like this is,
Yes.
and all, I can't, my teenage years, it was 9/11,
Yeah.
and of my like working adult life, I'm assuming, I hope that
I
this is
hope.
like I hope this is like the defining event. But the people who will, I've heard it in a couple places, the people who will come out of this shining essentially are the ones that made the hard decisions during it, like, and the people who are just sitting back like kind of playing the victim and stuff, like that's not the time. We're not in the time for that. You have to make the tough decisions, and the people who do that will come out better on the other side.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. Thank you so much. This was awesome. I really appreciate you taking the time
Oh,
and
thanks for
chatting
having
with
me.
us. Your insight is so helpful, particularly to those in the online space. And I know there are many people in the online space that are either in it, wanting to be in it. And so please tell everyone where they could find you.
Well, everything right now is under redefiningmom.com, literally everything. Eventually we'll link out to monicafroese.com from there, but if you want to find me now, that's where you'll find me.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Monica.
Thank you.